benefit of all, in return for the sovereign grant, which supports my official duties as head of state.
For years, the royal vault seemed untouchable, but a shocking discovery linked to Queen Camilla has raised serious questions about trust, control, and access to the crown's most treasured jewels. When experts found changes to a historic sapphire set tied to Queen Elizabeth II, the palace began to shift. As King Charles shuts Camilla out, what else could still be hidden inside the royal doors? The hidden vault mystery inside the royal palace. In a quiet morning inside the Grand Buckingham Palace, something unusual began to unfold deep within its most protected stone chambers. A team of royal inspectors, expert appraisers, and heritage specialists arrived as they normally did every few months. Their job was simple on paper. They were there to carefully review and confirm that the royal treasures stored for the nation were still safe, complete, and unchanged. These treasures were not ordinary objects. They were precious jewels passed down through generations of British monarchy, kept not as private riches, but as items held in trust for the people. The vaults were heavily guarded, watched closely, and sealed with strict security systems. Everything was expected to be exactly as it had been left. But on this particular day, the feeling in the air shifted the moment the team reached a special section. This part of the vault held the most personal belongings of Queen Elizabeth II, items that carried deep memories of her long life and reign. Among them was one of the most treasured collections in royal history, known in records as the George V Sapphire Suite. Some old documents link its origins back to around 8050, and it was said to have been a wedding gift from King George VI to his daughter Princess Elizabeth in 1947. The set included a long necklace made of deep blue sapphires and shining diamonds, along with matching square-shaped earrings. Over time, the Queen added a tiara in 1963 and a bracelet to complete the collection. Experts valued the set at more than $5 million, though most agreed its true worth could never be measured in money. It carried history, emotion, and the memory of a queen who wore it during many important moments of her life. As the inspectors carefully checked the items, they noticed something deeply disturbing. The square sapphire earrings were not in their original condition. The elegant settings had been changed. The design that had survived for generations had been altered into clip-on earrings. According to the rules written under the Royal Heritage Conservation Act, these items were not meant to be owned by anyone. After Queen Elizabeth II passed away in 2022, they were entrusted to Queen Camilla only as a custodian. She was allowed to wear them for official events to honor the late queen, or moments of constitutional concern. Inside stood the key members of the royal family, but she was not allowed to change them in any way. The report from the inspectors described the alteration as serious damage. The original structure had been forced open and modified, weakening the historical design. The reason behind the change was surprisingly simple. The queen consort did not have pierced ears, so the earrings were reshaped for personal comfort. What seemed like a small personal choice had now become a major issue, because it meant a piece of untouched history had been physically changed. As the inspection continued, the situation became even more alarming. More items from Queen Elizabeth II's collection were missing entirely from their storage cases. There was the Sapphire Jubilee Bouche, a special item linked to the Queen's 65th Jubilee celebrations. There was also a double-strand pearl necklace, one that had been seen during some of the most emotional public moments in modern royal history, including the funeral of Princess Diana in 1997. Alongside these were the lockdown journals, two leather-bound books filled with the late Queen's private thoughts and personal reflections during the global health crisis. These journals were meant to remain sealed until the year 2122. At first, officials believed it could be a simple recording error or misplaced storage, but very quickly they realized there were no signs of forced entry, no broken locks, no alarms triggered from outside. Instead, digital records showed something unexpected. The vault had been opened in the middle of the night using authorized access. A palace guard had entered after receiving instructions through an internal communication line. When investigators traced the origin of the instruction, they discovered something even more shocking. The signal did not come from security headquarters or any official office. It appeared to come from the private living area of Queen Camilla, Hours later, during a routine cleaning of her private rooms, staff members reportedly found the sapphire Jubilee item hidden inside a secret compartment built into a jewelry box. This discovery changed the entire situation. What had started as a routine audit was now turning into a serious internal investigation involving possible misuse of access within the palace itself. The news sent shockwaves through the royal household. King Charles III was at that very moment hosting an important diplomatic visit with guests from Nigeria. He continued the meeting in public with calmness, keeping his expression steady while receiving urgent internal updates behind closed doors. The pressure on him was enormous as he balanced national dignity with a deeply troubling situation inside his own home. After the guests left, the mood inside the palace reportedly changed completely. The investigation deepened, and tensions rose as officials tried to understand how protected royal items could have been altered and moved without detection. The image of calm royal life that the public often sees suddenly felt fragile. Behind the polished ceremonies and formal appearances, the palace was now dealing with confusion, suspicion, and emotional strain. What was once thought to be a simple vault check had transformed into a mystery involving trust, responsibility, and the meaning of heritage itself. Every item in question carried decades of history, and every change raised new questions about how such treasured objects should be protected in the future. As night fell over Buckingham Palace, silence filled the corridors. The weight of the discovery showed in every room. What had been uncovered was not just about missing jewels or altered designs. It was about the deep responsibility of guarding history, and how easily even the most carefully protected legacy can become uncertain. And as the investigation continued to unfold behind closed doors, one thing was clear: this was only the beginning of a much larger and more complicated truth waiting to be revealed. The moment the palace fell into silence. Inside the deepest secure rooms of Buckingham Palace, a velvet-lined presentation tray rested under soft, controlled light. On it lay the once flawless George V sapphire suite, a royal treasure that had once shone across state ceremonies and historic royal gatherings. But now its beauty felt wounded, as if time itself had been disturbed. The necklace still carried its deep blue stones, but beside it sat the square sapphire earrings, no longer untouched by history. An expert jeweler leaned in close under a strong magnifying lens, and what was revealed brought a heavy silence over everyone watching. The delicate metal framework, first created in the year 1850, had been forced out of shape. Parts had been bent with pressure, others shaved down, and some areas had been joined again with rough modern repair work. The original fastening system, carefully designed for Queen Elizabeth II, who wore pierced earrings for more than 7 decades of her life, had been completely removed. In its place were simple clip fastenings that did not match the original craftsmanship in any way. To someone trained in royal artifacts, this was not just damage. It felt like covering a masterpiece painting with ordinary paint. To King Charles III, it felt deeply personal. It was as if a sacred memory passed down from his father to his mother had been broken in front of his eyes. Soon after, the heavy wooden doors of the palace war room closed with a deep sound that echoed through the hall. This room was only used during serious national matters or moments of constitutional concern. Inside stood the key members of the royal family: King Charles III, Prince William, Princess Anne, Prince Edward, and Queen Camilla. The king sat in silence for a moment, his expression controlled but full of inner tension. Earlier that same day, he had smiled in front of cameras while hosting a diplomatic visit from Nigeria, hiding the storm that was building inside the palace walls. Finally, he asked how something like this could happen. His voice was calm but carried weight. He pointed not only to the damaged jewels, but also to the larger question of how an item of national importance had been moved without proper approval and then altered without permission from the royal experts responsible for such treasures. Queen Camilla responded first, explaining that she believed she had the right to manage the items as part of her role. She said her intention was to make sure the jewels could still be worn and seen rather than remaining locked away and unseen. But the situation had already gone beyond personal explanation. King Charles reminded everyone of the strict royal protection law that governed such artifacts. These items were not private possessions. They belonged to the nation and were held in trust for the people. Any change required approval from official royal authorities, expert review, and the final agreement of the monarch himself. None of this had taken place. Prince William then stepped forward, his focus shifting to another concern. He noticed the empty space where the sealed personal journals of Queen Elizabeth II should have been. His concern was no longer only about jewelry. It was about memory, history, and trust. He expressed that while the damaged jewels were serious, the missing journals represented something even more sensitive. These were private writings of his grandmother, meant to remain unopened until the year 2122. Their disappearance raised urgent questions. Investigators soon discovered digital records showing that, at exactly 4 o'clock in the morning, a palace guard had been instructed to enter secure areas. The instruction had not come from official security channels. Instead, the signal traced back to the private residential wing of Queen Camilla. The guard had reportedly been in a vulnerable financial situation, and communication logs suggested that promises of financial help had been used to influence his actions. Under this pressure, access was granted, and certain items were quietly moved out of storage. The truth became harder to ignore when cleaning staff later discovered one of the missing historical items hidden inside a concealed space within a jewelry box in the Queen Consort's private rooms. Faced with growing evidence, Queen Camilla eventually admitted to being involved in the removal of the journals. However, her explanation changed the tone of the room completely. She said she believed she was protecting the royal family. She described how, during the period from 2020 to 2021, Queen Elizabeth II had been living through loneliness and grief after the passing of Prince Philip. In that time, the Queen had written deeply personal reflections about her fears, doubts, and concerns about the future of the monarchy. According to Camilla, these writings also included critical thoughts about the stability of the royal household and private worries about whether King Charles III was fully prepared for the responsibilities ahead. She claimed that if such thoughts were revealed in 2021 to 2022, or in the present day, they could damage the reputation of the monarchy and create a national crisis. She explained that her intention had been to remove or control parts of this material in order to protect the crown and support her husband's reign, believing she was preventing future harm. The room grew completely still after her explanation. Everyone present was forced to confront a painful question. Was this an act of protection or an act of control over history itself? Princess Anne finally broke the silence. Known for her strict respect for royal duty, she stated that protecting the monarchy could never involve breaking its own rules. She explained that the Queen's final instructions had been clear. The journals were to remain untouched until the designated time. Changing that instruction meant crossing a line that could not be justified. At that moment, King Charles rose from his seat.
That we need to cherish the values of compassion.
The discussion had reached its conclusion. What had started as a search for missing objects had turned into something far deeper. A judgment about trust, duty, and personal responsibility. Behind closed doors, it was understood that the damage was no longer just physical. The altar jewels symbolized broken tradition, while the missing journals symbolized broken trust. And what he did next surprised everyone. The king began ordering immediate steps. A full forensic review of all items that had ever passed through Queen Camilla's access was announced. Her access to the royal vaults was withdrawn without delay, and preparations began for what was internally referred to as the Sanctions of May, a formal ruling process that could reshape her official standing within the monarchy. What followed was described as a turning point within the palace. The royal family was no longer simply dealing with missing artifacts. They were now facing questions about loyalty, authority, and the preservation of history itself. Some whispered that this moment marked the end of a marriage in the eyes of the institution, while others saw it as the beginning of a stricter era of royal accountability. In the days ahead, another decision was expected, one that could involve permanent loss of titles and possible removal from royal duties, with discussions even mentioning relocation to Ray Mill House as part of a long-term separation plan. But for now, the palace remained quiet. The war room had emptied, yet the weight of what was said inside still lingered in every corridor. The monarchy had not fallen, but it had been shaken in a way that would not be easily forgotten. Ellen Sekasek chose the law over the heart.
requires that I should, at my accession to the crown, take and subscribe the oath relating to the...
The quiet that filled Buckingham Palace after the war room meeting was not soft or calm. It was heavy, like the air before a storm breaks a house apart. Everything felt still, but not in a peaceful way. It felt like something inside the palace had already started to crack. King Charles III stood in that silence, a man who had waited about 70 years of his life to become king. On that Tuesday afternoon in May 2025, something in him had changed. He was no longer only a husband, he was now fully the monarch of the United Kingdom. He did not raise his voice. He did not show rage. Instead, he reached for something colder and more final, the rule of law. In his hands was a red folder holding the Royal Heritage Conservation Act and other written rules that protect the crown and its history. When he spoke, his words were steady and firm. He said the crown survives only through service and trust. And when that trust is broken inside the palace, and when history is damaged for personal comfort, then the entire monarchy is placed in danger. He made it clear that no title, no matter how high, can stand above the duty to protect the nation's heritage. Then came what the palace would later call the Sanctions of May. It was not one action, but many, each one removing a part of Queen Camilla's public life, step by step. First came the removal of titles linked to the military and royal ceremonies. She was immediately removed as Colonel of the Grenadier Guards and lost all honorary military positions. These roles were not just symbols, they connected the royal family to the armed forces. Losing them meant she no longer represented that bond of respect and duty. Next came the removal of her public responsibilities. Every official event she was meant to attend was canceled, or moments of constitutional concern. Inside stood the key members of the royal family, King Charles III, Prince William, Princess Anne, Prince Edward. Her name disappeared from the Royal Circular, which is the official record of royal duties. Charities that had once worked closely with her were told through formal letters that their relationship with the palace was now under review. Then came a much more serious step. The king ordered that all royal jewelry in her possession be taken back immediately. This included pieces from the official royal collection. Even the damaged George V sapphire suite was returned to the crown jewelers for safekeeping and review. A new rule was also created. From that moment forward, Camilla was no longer allowed to borrow, wear, or even access any item that had belonged to Queen Elizabeth II or the royal collection. The sapphire earrings incident had changed everything. It was now a permanent restriction. After that came the most painful decision, the order of residence. Camilla was instructed to leave Buckingham Palace by dawn. She would move to Raymill House in Wiltshire, her private home. But this was not described as a normal relocation. Palace officials called it an indefinite placement, a quiet way of saying she would not be returning to royal life as before. During this time, attention also turned back to the missing journals of Queen Elizabeth II. These were the private writings she had created during the difficult years of 2020 to 2021. King Charles confirmed that the journals had been recovered from a hidden place in Camilla's private space. To protect them, he ordered a new system of control. A double-key digital lock was created for the vault holding them. Only 2 people were now allowed access: King Charles III and Prince William. This decision carried deep meaning. By choosing William as the second keeper, Charles was showing where his trust now stood. It was no longer placed in his wife, but in his son and future king. The journals were sealed again under strict protection, exactly as Queen Elizabeth II had originally ordered before her death in 2022. With every decision made, the king's position became clear. He had chosen the rules of the crown over personal feelings. He had chosen duty over emotion. He had chosen the law over comfort. As Camilla was escorted out of the room, the atmosphere in the palace changed completely. She had entered royal life after years of public attention and personal struggle, but now she was leaving it through a quiet exit, under the shadow of a sapphire scandal that would follow her name in history.
In this, with the great diversity of our communities, we can find the strength to ensure that right triumphs over wrong.
Inside royal tradition, there is a belief often referred to as the Great Mask. It is the idea that a monarch must always appear strong and steady to the world, even when their private life is breaking apart behind closed doors. On this day in May 2025, that idea became reality. The palace looked calm from the outside, but inside, everything had changed forever. The day the palace stood still. On the morning of Wednesday, 14 May 2025, Buckingham Palace became a place of two very different worlds. One world was bright, formal, and calm for visitors. The other world, hidden behind closed doors, was heavy with shock and quiet decisions that were changing the future of the royal family. King Charles III stood in the grand reception hall, welcoming an important group of guests from Nigeria. This was not a simple visit. It was a serious Commonwealth meeting focused on trade, cooperation, and security matters between nations. For 4 long hours, the king spoke, smiled, shook hands, and listened carefully to discussions about international relations. Not once did he show what had happened only 12 hours earlier. In the night before, he had learned that a priceless royal jewelry set worth about $5 million had been altered inside his wife's private space. The discovery involved deep history, emotional memories, and damage to one of the most important heirlooms connected to Queen Elizabeth II. But on this Wednesday, 14 May 2025, none of that appeared on his face. He kept his voice steady and his expression calm, speaking about unity and friendship between nations, as if nothing had gone wrong inside the palace walls. This silence was not just emotional control, it was strategy. King Charles understood that if the scandal became public, while foreign leaders were inside the palace, it would turn a private royal issue into a worldwide crisis. So he chose to protect the image of the United Kingdom first, even while carrying personal pain inside. Behind the polished meetings, something much bigger was already moving. At exactly 2 o'clock in the afternoon, just after the Nigerian delegation left, a quiet but powerful change appeared in the official royal record known as the Court Circular. This document usually lists normal royal duties, such as meetings and charity visits, but on this day it looked completely different. Queen Camilla's name was missing. All of her planned duties for the next 6 months had been removed or reassigned. There was no explanation given to the public. Charities that once worked closely with her received confidential messages signed by the king's private office, saying that all royal partnerships connected to her were now on hold due to internal changes. At first, the public did not fully understand what was happening. On social media, questions began to appear again and again. Where is Camilla? What is going on inside the palace? By evening, those questions spread quickly across the country and beyond. Royal watchers noticed small but meaningful signs. Certain royal flags that normally showed full royal presence were lowered to half position in private areas of the palace grounds. Then came a carefully written public update about the royal jewelry collection. Without naming anyone directly, the palace confirmed that one important heritage piece from the time of King George V had been damaged without permission and returned to royal experts for restoration. It sounded technical on the surface, but people close to the situation understood the meaning clearly. This was the first official sign that something serious had happened inside the royal household. Slowly, the image of Queen Camilla in public life began to fade. There were no speeches or formal announcements. Instead, her presence was removed in quiet steps, as if she was being carefully erased from daily royal activity. By nightfall, the gates of Raymill House in Wiltshire were locked tightly. Security around the property was increased, but not to keep outsiders away. It was to ensure that the Queen Consort remained inside under strict conditions. Back at the palace, King Charles finally stepped away from public duties and entered private reflection. The weight of the entire day seemed to fall on him all at once. The monarchy had remained stable in public, but inside his personal world, everything had shifted. What followed next came from another level of investigation. Inside a hidden and highly secure laboratory used by royal jewel experts, a detailed examination was taking place. Specialists in ancient gemstones and historical metalwork were carefully studying the damaged George V sapphire suite. This team included master goldsmiths who had served the royal family for generations. Their task was to understand exactly what had been done to the historic earrings and necklace that formed part of Queen Elizabeth II's treasured collection, or moments of constitutional concern. Inside stood the key members of the royal family: King Charles III, Prince William, Princess Anne, Prince Edward. Their findings were deeply troubling. The earrings, which dated back to designs linked to 1850, had not been gently repaired. They had been heavily changed. The original metal structure had been cut using intense heat tools. This process caused tiny cracks inside the surrounding gold and diamond settings. Even worse, modern clip fasteners had been added using a lower quality metal. This new material did not match the original craftsmanship and had permanently mixed with the historic gold, damaging its purity. The experts concluded that while the sapphires themselves were still intact, the original 1850 design could never fully return. The piece had been permanently changed from a pure historical artifact into a modified version. In the world of royal heritage, this was a serious loss. When King Charles received this report, it marked a turning point. The situation was no longer only about missing items or secret movements inside the palace. It was about irreversible damage to royal history itself. The emotional weight of this realization led him to take a stronger and more permanent step. On Friday evening, the palace announced a new rule called the Sovereign Heritage Protection Act of 2025. This law changed how all royal treasures would be handled from that moment forward. It required regular inspections every 3 months by outside experts who were not part of the palace staff. It also stated that no item from the royal collection could be altered, cleaned, or repaired without approval from official crown jewelers. Any violation would result in immediate removal of the item and suspension of royal privileges. The law also made one thing very clear: no spouse of a monarch, including any queen consort, could claim ownership or personal rights over royal heirlooms. Everything from Queen Elizabeth II's collection belonged to the state and was held in trust for the people. This was widely seen as a direct response to the earlier incident. It removed any confusion about personal control over royal artifacts and placed full authority back into legal structure. In addition, King Charles created a new group of heritage guardians made up of experienced jewelers and historians. Their job was to protect royal items, not people, ensuring that loyalty belonged to history itself. Perhaps the most striking part of the new system was the permanent restriction placed on Queen Camilla. She was officially barred from accessing the royal vaults or being issued any heritage jewelry again. This included the George V sapphire suite, the sapphire jubilee piece, and even the Diana pearl necklace. For the first time in modern royal history, a queen consort was legally denied access to royal treasures. As experts began the long and delicate process of trying to repair the damaged earrings, knowing full restoration might never be possible, King Charles turned his attention back to another unresolved matter: the sealed journals of Queen Elizabeth II. If the jewels represented broken history in physical form, the journals held something even deeper: thoughts, fears, and private reflections about the future of the monarchy itself. With new laws now in place and control firmly restructured, the king prepared himself for the next stage. Not the restoration of objects, but the confrontation with the hidden truths written in his mother's own hand during her most lonely years. The story of the sapphire betrayal does not close with a courtroom or a public statement. It does not end with loud voices or public apologies. Instead, it fades into a far quieter place, deep below Buckingham Palace, where even sound seems to disappear and time feels slow and heavy. Hidden far under the old stone foundations lies a secured underground space known as the New Heritage Vault. After the crisis of May 2025, this place was reshaped into something much stronger than a simple storage room. It became a sealed chamber where the most sensitive royal objects and records are now kept away from the world.